More about last night's surprising House vote is Democratic Congressman Paul Tonko. Congressman, thanks for your time. It's good to see you.
My pleasure, Liz. It's good to join you and your viewers.
So what happened last night? It's been cast as a rebuke to the Speaker, to John Boehner, and really you had 48 Republicans joining with Democrats. Were you surprised? Because it seemed to catch Boehner by surprise.
Well, you know, there was a lot of concern that I had expressed to my colleagues about the falling short that this bill portrayed in terms of the response to New York State and its need for FEMA and USDA assistance, the farms, the businesses, the residents. And I knew that there were many concerns on our side, and I believe that on the other side of the fence there were those who may have seen it as too much spending. While we were concerned about not enough investment in recovery from these devastating storms, they were seeing it as too much. So that combination was a lethal weapon.
Congressman, it seems like we're refighting the debt ceiling debate, which is someplace that I think that none of us really want to go. I can't imagine you do. So how are we going to get out of this? Now we're talking about shutdown possibility again?
Well, I would hope not. I mean, there's no time here for gamesmanship. There are people who need assistance. They need it as soon as yesterday. And, you know, when I've toured over and over again in the 21st Congressional District, I see farmlands that need to be restored. We need to clean debris. We need to make certain that the watersheds are redeveloped, that homes are made inhabitable again, that businesses can open their doors again so that revenues can flow. There's no time here. There's precious little time to waste, and to go about looking for offsets at a time when we had always traditionally offered emergency assistance when it was needed now is not the time to change that behavior.
You know, in this case, actually, we saw, unlike with the debt ceiling, we saw every single member of New York's Republican part of the delegation, at least, voting along, I believe, voting along the same lines, right, sticking with the party leadership. However, I believe that's how it went. I was surprised to see that Carolyn McCarthy, the Democrat, broke with the party. Do you have any idea why she did that?
I do not. I heard this morning that she had you know, looked at her vote, and I don't know if it was a change vote, but I don't know her rationale. All I do know is that we needed to do far better for New York. There is no way we will get nearly the amount of dollars required. As you know, the President recommended $5.1 billion. This bill falls far short at $3.6 billion, and again, did nothing for farmers. So we had to improve it, vastly improve it, in order for it to be acceptable to many of us.
So what can you tell us in terms of making movement here, because Congress is scheduled to go on break next week, I believe. You've got a September 30th deadline for the entire federal government refinancing. Not just, I know that the sticking point at this point is about FEMA aid, but we're talking about something that's far more sizable than that.
Yes, I know that the Republican majority has been in conference for quite some time this afternoon, and I think they're trying to work through the struggle where there are those who are obviously suggesting that there's legitimacy to our request, I would imagine, and there are others who absolutely refuse to invest in government programs. And when people are down and out, when they've lost their homes to the ravages of the hurricane and the tropical storm, now's not the time to deny programs or adjust how we pay for those programs. They have always been straightforward assistance. And so what we're doing on our side, in fact, I introduced a measure that quantifies the exact need for our farmers. We have put together a $151 million request for our conservation program under the United States Department of Agriculture, and a $187.5 million request for our water preservation program. These are very critical. We have some of the richest soils in the Northeast, in the Schoharie Valley of the 21st Congressional District. Those soils have to be restored. The farming element has got to come back. It's a major part of industry in upstate New York.
Congressman, today we saw Senator Schumer suggest that if the Republicans try to get more of their members onto the yes side of the aisle by deeper spending cuts, this is not something that the Democrats are going to be able to go along with. I mean, I think that what Schumer would like to see is just a straight FEMA refunding bill. Is that something that you are hoping also to see, and that the leadership is putting forward in the House? The Democratic
Well, I think
leadership?
it's the best way to respond. Right. It's the best way to respond, Liz, to the flood situation. A straightforward supplemental that allows not only for FEMA to be given the dollars it needs, but to address the needs of HUD, of Commerce, of the Army Corps of Engineers, of the United States Department of Agriculture. These are important agencies that all have a role to play here in the comeback of the Schoharie Valley, the Mohawk Valley in the Capital Region, and all across the map of New York and the Northeast for that matter. And there are other regions in the country that have had different types of disasters related to Mother Nature. So this is not a time, again, to change the rules. And what you have is this cut-for-cut's sake mentality where people come here denying government, disliking government, all at a time when we have proven through these very days that government is essential here. We need to step up to the plate and allow effective government to offer the services that people require. It's as simple and basic as that.
Congressman, I don't have any doubt that at some point, because you're looking at history here, that you're going to come up to the wire and come up with some sort of agreement that averts a government shutdown, that funds FEMA to some degree, that everybody can agree on both sides, etc. That's what history seems to indicate is going to happen. But this, every single time you have to come to a slugfest, the FAA, the FEMA funding, the debt ceiling, the budget cutting, the jobs bill from the president. I mean, when is this going to end?
Well, you know, Liz, in a democracy, we get the government we desire. We get the government we choose. And if we have chosen this divide, if we have chosen cut for the sake of cutting, then people are getting a taste of that sort of, that brand of government. And unfortunately, there may be some pain here that will be acknowledged, and then people will adjust their thinking accordingly. I don't know how more basic it can get. There were people who I think may have voted for change and not understanding that the change would be so severe. I mean, I see this as a functioning sort of concept where you respond as a neighbor. If that neighbor might be a coast away, if people have suffered an earthquake or a tornado, we have always been there. We in the 21st Congressional District, in the span of 10 days, suffered an earthquake, a hurricane, a tornado, and then a tropical storm. And that the ravaging of winds, of floods, of tremendous damage to our infrastructure, our businesses, our homes, our farms, our heritage infrastructure, these are vastly required programs now. And now, again, it's not the time to change government thinking, nor do I think people in the regions affected want to change thinking. They want this assistance.
Yeah, and I don't want to sort of sound like naive about it. I understand what's going on here, but you have to ask yourself, first of all, when you list it like that, it sounds sort of like end of days-ish, which is a little scary. I didn't really realize it was all compressed so dramatically in such a short time span. But when voters, just sort of throw up their hands and say, you got to say, why does anybody want to come to the polls anymore? Why do they even want to bother anymore?
Well, because the thoughtfulness as we choose in government is required. It's absolutely essential. And I've told people on the floor when I've advocated for the flood revenues, for the response numbers, for the appropriations, when they have suggested to me we're going to have to find offsets, cut education, cut public safety, cut health care, whatever it might be, I tell them, look, people, when they hear this in my district, are angered. And I know the political persuasions. I know them because I've represented them for some 40 years, and people have shared their philosophy with me. But people, even with the most right thinking, the most conservative thinking, are angry when they hear that because they anticipate that good government, regardless of the philosophy or the persuasion, political persuasion, they expect that that delivery will be there. And never anticipated that such extreme measures as those we're dealing with on the House floor would ever be part of the options offered.
Well, just very briefly, Congressman, because I don't want to keep you too long. I know you've got votes and we're running out of time, but just what is the latest from your district in terms of recovery efforts? People I know are starting to come back and get some of the help that they need.
Right. As I understand it, some 40 plus in requests, 40 million in requests
right.
have been made so far, and 37 have been responded to. It appears as though this is far better than a Katrina response. So I've let the governor, the president know, and the governor know that both from a FEMA and CEMO perspective, the response has been tremendous, and the teams working locally with the firefighters and emergency responders, emergency management, and law enforcement individuals, they have worked fabulously well with FEMA and CEMO. And so the response in the beginning is good. Last night, we had a telephone town hall. We did it with all the flood-affected areas. We had over 20,000 households or individuals hook into that call. And there was a lot of info feed. And there's a lot of interest. And that's what tells me people want effective government. They want government to respond here. They're not saying cut the programs.
Okay.
And that's what the Republican majority is telling us here.
Okay, unfortunately we are out of time, Congressman. I want to thank you very much for your time, as always.
Well, Liz, thank you for your time.
Your update. We'll be following this, of course.
Well, we'll continue the fight on the House floor.
Good.